Hello friends, I'm Ellie. Welcome to Cardboard Design. Today, I will tell you interesting and meaningful fairy tales. You will learn a lot of lessons through fairy tales. Let's start now. The first fairy tale, Golden Treasure. The drummer's wife went to church and saw the new altar with painted pictures and carved angels. The angels were very beautiful, both those painted on cloth, in all their colors and glory, and those carved in wood painted and gilded. Their hair shone like gold and sunshine and was beautiful to look at. But God's sunshine was still more beautiful. It glowed bright and red between the dark trees as the sun was setting. And as the woman gazed on the descending sun, her innermost thoughts were about the little child the stork was bringing her. She was radiantly happy as she gazed, and she wished most fervently that her child might be as bright as a sunbeam, or at least look like one of the shining angels on the altarpiece. And when she actually lifted up her child in her arms to show her husband, it seemed to her that the infant really did resemble one of the angels in the church. At least it had golden hair that had caught the reflection of that setting sun.
My golden treasure, my wealth, my sunshine,
said the mother as she kissed the bright locks. And this sounded like music and song in the drummer's home. There was joy and lots of life and celebrating. The drummer beat a whirlwind on his drum, a whirlwind of happiness. The fire drum shouted,
"Red hair? The young one has red hair? Listen, believe the drum and not the mother. Dr. Rumalum, Dr. Rumalum."
And all the town agreed with what the fire drum said. The boy was taken to church and was christened. There was nothing unusual about the name given him. He was called Peter. Everybody in town called him Peter, the drummer's red-haired boy. But his mother kissed that red hair and called him Golden Treasure. In the clayey embankment along the hollow road, many people had scratched their names to be remembered.
Fame,
said the drummer.
That's always important.
So he, too, scratched his name there and that of his little son. And in the spring the swallows came. In their long travels they had seen many characters cut into rock cliffs and on the temple walls of India, telling of the great deeds of mighty kings. Immortal names so old that no one could even read them now. Name value. Fame. The swallows built their nests in the hollow road, in holes in the embankment. Rain crumbled it and washed away all the names, the drummers and his little sons with them.
However, Peter's name stayed there for a year and a half,
said the father.
Fool,
thought the fire drum, but it only said,
Dr. Rum, Dr. Rum, Dr. Rum, Dr. Rumalum.
The drummer's son with the red hair was a lively and high-spirited boy. He had a lovely voice. He could sing, and sing he did, as does the bird in the forest, all melody and no tune. He ought to be a choir boy, said his mother, and sing in the church, standing under the pretty gilded angels whom he looks like. Firecat, said the town wit. The drum heard it from the neighbors.
Don't go home, Peter,
cried the street boys.
If they make you sleep in the attic, your hair will set the thatch on fire, and that will start the fire drum.
Look out for the drumsticks,
retorted Peter. Although he was only a little fellow, he was courageous, and threw his fist right into the stomach of the boy nearest him, knocking his legs from under him, and the others took to their legs, their own legs. The state musician was proud and haughty. He was the son of a royal servant. He liked Peter and took him home with him for hours at a time, gave him a violin and taught him to play. It seemed to show in the boy's fingers that he would become more than a drummer, that he would become a state musician.
I want to be a soldier,
said Peter, for he was still a very small fellow and thought it would be the finest thing in the world to shoulder a gun and to march. 1, 2, 1, 2, and to wear a uniform and carry a saber.
You'll learn to obey the drum, Dr. Rumalum. Come,
said the drum.
Yes, you may march ahead to become a general,
said the father.
but only if there is a war.
God save us from that,
said the mother.
We have nothing to lose,
said the drummer.
yes, we have my boy,
said she.
But when he could come home a general,
said the father.
without any arms or legs.
said the mother.
No, thank you. I'd rather keep my golden treasure whole.
Dr. Rum, Dr. Rum, Dr. Rum beat the fire drum, and all the drums joined in. What really did come. The soldiers marched out, and the drummer's boy marched with them.
Red top golden treasure.
The mother wept. The father imagined him coming home famous. The state musician thought he would have been better off staying home and studying music. Red Top, the soldiers said, and Peter laughed, but when some of them called him Foxy, his mouth tightened and he looked straight ahead, as if that name did not concern him. The boy was smart, carefree, and good-humored, and that made him a favorite with his older comrades. Many nights he had to sleep under the open sky, in rain and mist, wet to the skin, but his good humor never failed. His drumsticks beat, Dr. Rumalum. Everybody up. Yes, He was certainly a born drummer boy. It was a day of battle. The sun was not yet up, but it was morning. The air was cold and the fight was hot. The morning was foggy, but there was a still heavier fog from gunpowder. Bullets and grenades flew overhead and into heads, bodies, and limbs. Still the command was, forward. One after another sank to his knees with bleeding temple and pale white face. The little drummer boy's color was still healthy. He wasn't hurt at all. With flashing eyes, he watched the regimental dog running before him. And the animal was really happy, as if the whole thing were in fun and they were firing the bullets only to play with him. March! Forward, march! Was the command given the drummers, but sometimes orders have to be changed, with good reason, and now the word was, retreat. But the little drummer boy still sounded, march forward, not understanding that the orders had been changed. The soldiers obeyed the drum. And it was lucky they did, for the mistake resulted in victory. Lives and limbs were lost in the battle. The grenade tears away the flesh in bleeding fragments. The grenade sets fire to the straw heap where the poor wounded has dragged himself to lie forsaken for many hours, forsaken perhaps until death. It doesn't help to think about it, and yet people do think about it even far away in the peaceful town at home. There the drummer and his wife thought of it, for, of course, Peter was in the war. It was the day of battle. The sun was not yet up, but it was morning. After a sleepless night spent in talking about their boy, the drummer and his wife had finally fallen asleep, for they knew that wherever he was, God's hand was protecting him. And the father dreamed that the war was over, that the soldiers came home, and Peter was wearing a silver cross on his breast. But the mother dreamed that she walked into the church and looked at the painted pictures and the carved angels with the gilded hair, and that her own dear boy, her heart's golden treasure, stood among the angels clad in white, and sang as sweetly as surely only the angels can sing, and was carried up into the sunshine with them, nodding tenderly to his mother.
My golden treasure.
She cried and awoke in the same instant.
Now I know that our Lord has taken him.
Then she folded her hands, leaned her head against the cotton bed curtain, and wept.
Where has he found rest? In the wide, common grave they dig for so many of the brave dead, or in the deep waters of the marsh? No one will know his grave. No holy words will be read over it.
Silently the Lord's Prayer passed over her lips, her head drooped in fatigue, and she fell asleep. Days passed by, in wakeful hours and in dreams. It was toward evening, and a rainbow arched over the battlefield. It touched the edge of the wood and the deep marsh. There is an old saying that where the rainbow touches the earth, a treasure lies buried, a golden treasure. And here was one. No one thought about the little drummer except his mother, and that's why she had dreamed of him. Not a hair of his head had been injured, not a single golden hair. Dr. Rum-a-Lum, Dr. Rum-a-Lum. There he is, there he is. Would the drum have said, and his mother would have sung, had she seen or dreamed this. With song and hurrah, and wearing the green leaves of victory, the regiment marched home. When the war was over and peace had come, the regimental dog jumped and ran in wide circles, as though trying to make the journey 3 times longer. Days passed and weeks passed, and at last Peter entered his parents' room. He was as brown as a hermit, his eyes bright, and his face as radiant as the sunshine. His mother held him in her arms and kissed his lips, his eyes, his red hair. She had her boy home again. He had no silver decoration on his breast, as his father had dreamed, but then he was unharmed, which his mother had not dreamed. And there was great joy. They laughed and they wept, and Peter embraced the old fire drum.
The old thing is still standing here.
He said, and his father beat a tattoo on it. There's as much fuss as though there were a big fire in town, said the drum to itself. Fire in the roof, fire in the heart. Golden treasure. Dr. Rum, Dr. Rum, Dr. Rum. And then, yes, what then? Just ask the state musician.
Peter has outgrown the drum.
He said,
He'll be a bigger man than I.
and remember, he was the son of a royal servant. But what had taken him a lifetime to learn, Peter had learned in half a year. There was something cheerful about him. His eyes sparkled, and his hair shone. That cannot be denied,
He ought to dye his hair.
said their next-door neighbor.
The policeman's daughter did, and look what it did for her. She was engaged at once.
Yes, but a little later her hair turned as green as duckweed, and she has to dye it again and again.
Well, she can afford to.
Said the neighbor woman.
And so can Peter. Doesn't he go into the best houses, even the mayor's, to teach Miss Lot the harpsichord?
Yes, play he could, play right out of his heart. The most charming pieces that had never been written down in notes. He played on moonlit nights and stormy ones as well. It was difficult to put up with, said the neighbors, and the fire drum. He played until his thoughts soared strongly upward, and great plans for the future took shape before him. Fame! The mayor's daughter, Lot, sat at the harpsichord, and as her delicate fingers danced over the chords, they vibrated in Peter's heart until it seemed as if it were growing too big for his body. This happened not once, but many times, until one day he seized her delicate hand, kissed it, and gazed into her large brown eyes. Our Lord knows what he said. We others may guess it. Lot blushed crimson, face and neck, and answered not a word. And just then they were interrupted by strangers, among them the counselor's son, with his high, smooth forehead. But Peter did not go, and Lottie's kindest glances were for him. At home that evening he talked of going abroad, and of the golden treasure that his violin would bring him. Fame! Dr. Rumalum, Dr. Rumalum, Dr. Rumalum, said the fire drum. Now something is surely wrong with Peter. I think the house must be on fire. The mother went to market the next day.
Have you heard the news, Peter?
She said when she returned.
Such wonderful news! The mayor's daughter, Lot, was betrothed to the counselor's son. It happened last evening.
No,
Said Peter, and sprang up from his chair. But his mother said yes. She had learned it from the barber's wife, and the barber had it from the lips of the mayor himself. And Peter grew as pale as death and sat down again.
Lord God, how do you feel?
Said his mother.
fine, just let me alone.
He said, but the tears were rolling down his cheek.
My sweet child, my golden treasure.
Said the mother, and cried. But the fire drum grumbled to itself. Lot is dead, Lot is dead. Yes, that song is over now. The song was not over. It still had many unsung verses, long verses, the most beautiful, about a life's golden treasure.
What a fuss she makes.
Said the next door neighbor.
The whole world has to read the letters she gets from her golden treasure and hear what the newspapers say about him and his violin playing. He sends her money, too, for she needs that now that she's a widow.
He plays before kings and emperors.
Said the state musician.
That was never my good luck, but at least he was my pupil, and he hasn't forgotten his old master.
My husband dreamed
Said his mother.
that Peter came home from the war with a silver cross on his chest. Well, he does wear a cross now, but it's not a decoration earned in the war, it's an order of knighthood. If his father had only lived to see it.
Famous. Said the fire drum. And everybody in his hometown said the same. Peter, the red-haired boy of the drummer Peter, whom they had seen wearing wooden shoes as a youngster, and seen as a drummer boy playing at dances, was now famous.
He played to us before he played before the kings.
Said the mayor's wife.
Once upon a time he was crazy about our Lot. He always aimed high. How my husband laughed when he learned that nonsense. Now Lot is a counselor's wife.
Yes, there was a golden treasure hidden in the heart and soul of the poor child who as a little drummer boy had beaten forward to troops supposed to retreat. In his breast was a golden treasure indeed, the gift of music. It resounded from his violin as if an organ were inside, as if all the elves of midsummer eve danced along its strings, and one could hear the song of the throstle and the human voice together. His playing enraptured people's hearts, and carried his name throughout all lands, like a great fire, a fire of inspiration. And he's so handsome, too, said the young ladies and the old ones as well. Yes, the oldest lady bought herself an album for the locks of celebrities, just so she could beg for a tress from the young violinist's abundant and beautiful hair, a treasure, a golden treasure. And the son returned to the drummer's humble dwelling, as handsome as a prince, happier than a king, his eyes bright, his face like sunshine. He held his mother in his arms, and she kissed his warm mouth and wept as happily as one can weep with joy. He greeted every old piece of furniture in the room, the chest of drawers with the teacups and flower vases on it, and the little cot where he had slept as a child. But he dragged the old fire drum into the middle of the room and said, both to his mother and to the drum,
Father would have beaten a welcome on you today. Now I must do it instead.
So he thundered a regular tempest on the drum, and the old drum felt itself so honored that the skin of the drumhead burst. He certainly has a fine fist, said the drum. Now I'll always have a souvenir of him. I expect that his mother, too, will burst from joy over her golden treasure. That's the story of Golden Treasure. Peter, the drummer's son, dreams of a future beyond his humble beginnings. His ambition, fueled by his musical talent, leads him to achieve fame and recognition. The story reflects on the power of dreams and the pursuit of one's aspirations. Peter faces challenges, including war and heartbreak, but his resilience and enduring spirit enable him to overcome adversity. Despite the hardships, he remains strong and continues to pursue his passion for music. Music serves as a transformative force in Peter's life. His talent with the violin not only brings him personal fulfillment but also elevates him to fame and success. The story highlights the profound impact that art and music can have on an individual's journey. The story touches on the theme of love and loss, particularly in Peter's unrequited love for Lot, the mayor's daughter. The emotional impact of losing her to another man adds depth to the narrative, emphasizing the complexities of relationship. The drummer and his wife experience a range of emotions, from pride in their son's achievements to the sacrifice and worry that come with having a child in the midst of war. The story explores the profound connection between parents and their children. The narrative delves into the consequences and rewards of fame. Peter's rise to fame brings him admiration and success, but it also comes with challenges and the need to navigate the expectations of others. The story spans different stages of life, from Peter's childhood as a drummer's son to his experiences in war, his pursuit of music, and finally, his return home. This cyclical nature of life is reflected in the passing of seasons and the broader themes of growth and change. In summary, Golden Treasure is a rich and multi-layered narrative that explores the human experience through themes of ambition, resilience, love, and the transformative power of art. It portrays the journey of a young man who, against various odds, discovers his own golden treasure within the realms of his passion and talent. The second fairy tale. In the children's room, father and mother and all the brothers and sisters had gone to the theater. Only little Anna and her grandfather were left at home.
We'll put on a play too,
He said,
and it can start right away.
But we don't have any theater,
said little Anna.
and we haven't anybody to do the acting. My old doll can't because she looks dreadful, and my new one mustn't because she'd rumple her new dress.
You can always find actors if you use what you have.
Said grandfather.
Now, let's build the theater. We'll set up a book here, and another there, and one more over there, in a slanting row. Now 3 on the other side. So, now we have the side wings. The old box lying over there can be the backdrop. And we'll turn the bottom out. The stage represents a room. Everyone can see that. Now we need the actors. Let's see what we can find in your toy drawer. First the characters, and then we'll prepare the play. One holds the other together. This is going to be splendid. Here's a pipe head, and there an odd glove. They'll do very well for father and daughter.
But that's only 2 characters,
said little Anna.
Here's my brother's old waistcoat. Couldn't that play a part too?
It's certainly big enough.
Said grandfather.
We'll make it the lover. There's nothing in its pockets, and that's very interesting. For that's why the course of true love doesn't run smoothly. And here we have the Nutcracker's boot, with spurs on it. Potz, Blitz, Mazurka! Look how he can dance and strut. He'll be the unwelcome suitor, whom the lady doesn't care for. Now what kind of play do you want? A tragedy? Or a domestic drama?
A domestic drama,
said little Anna.
The others like that sort of play. Do you know one?
I know 100.
Said grandfather.
The most popular ones are from the French, but they're not good for little girls. Instead, we'll take one of the prettiest. They're all about the same inside. Now I'll shake my bag. Cockle Rub, brand new. And now here's the play, all brand new. Now listen to the program.
Then Grandpapa took up a newspaper and pretended to be reading from it. The Pipehead and the Good Head, a family drama in 1 act. Characters: Mr. Pipehead, a father, Mr. Waistcoat, a lover. Miss Glove, a daughter, Mr. Boot, a suitor. Now we're ready to start. The curtain rises, but we don't have any curtain, so it's up already. All the characters are on the stage, so we see them immediately. Now I speak as Father Pipehead. He's angry today. You can see that he's a colored meerschaum. Chit-chat, muttering, poppycock. I'm master of this house. I'm my daughter's father. Listen to what I have to say. Mr. Boot is a person in whom you can see your face. His upper part is made of Morocco, and he has spurs at the bottom. Prattle, chit-chat. He shall have my daughter,
Now listen to what the waistcoat says, little Anna.
said grandfather.
He's speaking now. The waistcoat has a lay-down collar, is very modest, but knows his own value, and has a right to speak his mind. I haven't a spot on me, he says. Good material ought to be taken into consideration. I'm made of real silk, and have strings on me.
On the wedding day, but not after that. You don't keep your color in the wash? This is Mr. Pipehead speaking. But Mr. Boot is watertight, made of strong leather, and yet very delicate. He can creak and clank his spurs, and looks Italian,
But they ought to speak in poetry.
said little Anna.
I've heard that's the nicest way.
Oh, they can do that too.
Said grandfather.
And if the public wants it, they'll do it. Just look at little Miss Glove, pointing her fingers.
A glove without a mate. That's forever my fate. Ah, I can't get over it. I think my skin will split. Bah! It was Father Pipehead who said bah. And now Mr. Waistcoat speaks. Oh, beautiful glove. You must be my love, though you're from Spain. And I'm Holger the Dane. When Mr. Boot hears this, he kicks up his heels, jingles his spurs, and knocks down 3 of our side wings.
This is such wonderful fun.
Said little Anna.
Quiet! Quiet!
Said grandfather.
Silent approval will show that you belong to the educated public in the front rows. Now Miss Glove sings her great aria with a break in her voice.
I have no voice. I can crow, but that's all. Caw, caw in the lofty hall. Now comes the really exciting part. Little Anna, this is the most important scene in the whole play. Mr. Waistcoat unbuttons himself and addresses his speech to you out front so that you will applaud. But don't do it. It's more refined not to. Hear how his silk cloth rustles. I am driven to extremity. Take care of yourself. Here's my plot. You are the pipe head, and I am the good head. Zip, and away you go,
Did you see that, little Anna?
said grandfather.
That's a most delightful comic scene, mister. Waistcoat seized the old pipehead and put him into his pocket. There he lies. And Mr. Waistcoat speaks.
Aha, you are in my pocket now, in my deepest pocket. You will never come out unless you promise to unite me to your daughter, Miss Left Hand Glove. I hold out my right hand,
My, that's awfully pretty.
said little Anna. And now old Pipehead replied, I'm getting so awfully dizzy. Unlike before, I'm not busy. Gone is my humor, I fear. Never have I felt so queer. Without my stem here, I feel so frail. Take me from your pocket without fail, and you shall have my daughter here, to marry and to hold dear,
Is the play over already?
said little Anna.
Certainly not.
Said grandfather.
It's just all over with Mr. Boot. Now the lovers kneel, and one of them sings.
Father, and the other, Mr. Pipehead, do as you oughter. Bless your son and daughter. They receive his blessing and celebrate their wedding, and all the furniture sings in chorus. Clinks and clanks. 1,000 thanks. And now our play is over,
And now we can applaud.
said grandfather.
We'll bring them all out for a curtain call. And the pieces of furniture too, for they're made of mahogany.
And isn't our play just as good as the ones you see in a real theater?
Our play is much better.
Said grandfather.
It's shorter. The admission was free. And it has passed away the time before our tea.
The story emphasizes the power of creativity and imagination. Grandfather and little Anna use everyday objects to create a theater and invent characters for a play. It highlights the joy and richness that can come from using one's imagination to turn ordinary moments into extraordinary experiences. The characters in the play are created from simple items found around the house: a pipehead, a waistcoat, a glove, and a boot. This reflects the theme of resourcefulness, demonstrating that one can make the most of what is available rather than relying on elaborate props or expensive materials. The grandfather and little Anna engage in a shared activity, creating a play together. This underscores the importance of family bonding and spending quality time with loved ones. The play becomes a collaborative effort, fostering a sense of connection and joy. The story is filled with humor, playfulness, and whimsical elements. The characters, such as Mr. Wise coat unbuttoning himself and putting Mr. Pipe head in his pocket, add a lighthearted and entertaining touch. It reminds readers of the joy that comes from embracing humor and play in everyday life. The story introduces basic theatrical elements such as characters, a setting, and a plot. It playfully incorporates theatrical cliches, like the characters breaking into poetry, creating an amusing and charming atmosphere. Grandfather advises little Anna not to applaud during the play, suggesting that refined audiences appreciate the subtlety of the performance. This may subtly convey a message about the value of refined taste and appreciation for the arts. The story closes with the characters receiving a blessing and celebrating their wedding, followed by a chorus from the furniture. This brings a sense of closure and completeness to the imaginative play. The expression of gratitude in the final chorus reflects an appreciation for the shared experience. In summary, The Pipehead and the Good Head is a heartwarming story that celebrates creativity, resourcefulness, family bonding, and the joy of imaginative play. It encourages readers to find delight in the simple and playful moments of life. The third fairy tale, The Teapot. There was a proud teapot, proud of being made of porcelain, proud of its long spout and its broad handle. It had something in front of it and behind it. The spout was in front, and the handle behind, and that was what it talked about. But it didn't mention its lid, for it was cracked and it was riveted and full of defects. And we don't talk about our defects. Other people do that. The cups, the cream pitcher, the sugar bowl. In fact, the whole tea service thought much more about the defects in the lid and talked more about it than about the sound handle and the distinguished spout. The teapot knew this.
I know them,
It told itself.
and I also know my imperfections. And I realize that in that very knowledge is my humility and my modesty. We all have many defects, but then we also have virtues. The cups have a handle, the sugar bowl has a lid, but of course I have both. And one thing more, one thing they can never have, I have a spout, and that makes me the queen of the tea table. The sugar bowl and the cream pitcher are permitted to be serving maids of delicacies, but I am the one who gives forth, the advisor. I spread blessings abroad among thirsty mankind. Inside of me the Chinese leaves give flavor to boiling, tasteless water.
This was the way the teapot talked in its fresh young life. It stood on the table that was prepared for tea, and it was lifted up by the most delicate hand. But that most delicate hand was very awkward. The teapot was dropped, the spout broke off, and the handle broke off. The lid is not worth talking about. Enough has been said about that. The teapot lay in a faint on the floor, while the boiling water ran out of it. It was a great shock it got, but the worst thing of all was that the others laughed at it, and not at the awkward hand.
I'll never be able to forget that,
said the teapot, when later on it talked to itself about its past life.
They called me an invalid and stood me in a corner, and the next day gave me to a woman who was begging for food. I fell into poverty and was speechless both outside and inside. But as I stood there, my better life began.
One is one thing and then becomes quite another. They put earth in me, and for a teapot that's the same as being buried. But in that earth they planted a flower bulb. Who put it there and gave it to me? I don't know, but it was planted there. A substitution for the Chinese leaves and the boiling water, the broken handle and spout. And the bulb lay in the earth, inside of me, and it became my heart, my living heart, a thing I never had before. There was life in me. There were power and might. My pulse beat. The bulb put out sprouts. Thoughts and feelings sprang up and burst forth into flower. I saw it, I bore it, and I forgot myself in its beauty. It is a blessing to forget oneself in others.
It didn't thank me. It didn't even think of me. Everybody admired it and praised it. It made me very happy. How much more happy it must have made it. One day, I heard them say it deserved a better pot. They broke me in two. That really hurt. And the flour was put into a better pot. Then they threw me out into the yard, where I lie as an old potsherd. But I have my memory that I can never lose.
The story ends here. There are still many interesting fairy tales waiting for you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to listen to more interesting fairy tales. Bye-bye!